As the players, fans, and everybody involved in Major League Baseball enjoys a nice long all-star break, let me remind you, you can't just sit back and wait for your fantasy baseball team to kick off the second half. You need to be proactive. That doesn't just include making trades and looking for players in the waiver wire. It also might include cutting some dead weight. It's time to drop some players who are widely rostered across fantasy baseball leagues. Some of these names might surprise you, including a guy who's about to make his first All-Star game debut. That's right, it's been a great season for David Fry, but really, let's just say it was a really good month of May because basically all of his success came in that 1 month. Start the season, nobody knew about David Fry outside of Cleveland fans, and even then, it was probably kind of iffy. In April, he didn't do anything of significance, really, and all of a sudden, he caught fire and people started adding him. This guy who hit in the month of May 383 and 7 home runs. And it helps that this is a guy who can also qualify at catcher, first base, infield. You can play him anywhere, so very appealing for fantasy purposes. But then, predictably, reality set back in. He hasn't hit above 260 in any other month, and July lately has been his worst month. In fact, he's coming off a stretch, 7 straight games he's appeared without a hit. And he's just 3 for his last 30. I mean, talk about limping into the All-Star break. This guy is limping into the All-Star game. Look, you don't want to take away the success he had, and obviously became a fan favorite there, but look, being on a team that is winning, like Cleveland, a team where, I mean, there's not a whole lot to choose from individually for All Stars. Not saying that's the only reason he got selected. There are other good players there, obviously, with Jose Ramirez making the team too. But still, it's just overrated for fantasy. Again, you don't want to get a guy who's already peaked and has never done it before. David Fry is not giving anything to you for fantasy since the month of May, and obviously struggling lately. You don't have to hold on. And while a lot of fantasy owners have already realized this, his roster rate is still above 50%. So I would just say if you've been holding on to him, waiting for that magic to come back, I wouldn't do that. And maybe the toughest drop to make is a pitcher, a young pitcher with tons of talent, who's on a good team, shows so much promise. Guy who's good last year, but just not repeating the magic from his rookie season. First, I'm going to talk about Bobby Miller of the Dodgers. Now, obviously, he's been dropped a lot lately because he was sent back down to the minors. But the question remains, can he bounce back? Will he regain his form? Is this still in there somewhere? Was this just, a bad return off of an injury, guy who was so rusty? Is there something, physical, health-wise, where he can recover from? I mean, there's a lot of variables here, right? He spent so much time on the injured list. This is a very young pitcher who doesn't have a lot of experience yet at the major league level, but that's the problem. I cannot look at you now and say, yeah, as soon as the Dodgers bring him back up, he'll be fine. Because A, I don't know that the Dodgers will bring him back up. Because what if he still looks bad at the minor league level? What if there is an injury that has not been recovered from fully yet here? And what if he just doesn't have that command back? If you look, let's talk about the physical things first. Being injured for so long, coming back, you wonder maybe he wasn't right, maybe he wasn't ready. Well, his velocity was down a bit in his first couple of starts back, but I don't think it was significant enough to say that that was what it was, that he's still hurt or something else has popped up. As far as his different pitches, you can see it changed a bit with each start. Again, I don't know that I can point to that and say that's the issue. Here's what I can point to. He just could not locate the ball in the strike zone. That end zone percentage was way down after coming off the IL. You can see there. This is why the results were, I can't even say mixed. I mean, really, they were just rough. After missing more than 2 months, getting hurt early in the season in April, came back and allowed 5 runs in his first start. Next start only lasted 2 innings and gave up 3 runs. And it looked like he was taking a step forward, only gave up 2 runs over 5 innings. And then there's the one that just sank him and anybody who had him in their fantasy lineups at the time. That game against the Phillies, he gave up 9 runs and 10 hits in just 4 innings. But really the biggest issue to me is not just the runs and the hits, but the fact that since he did come off the IL, he walked 12 batters and only struck out 9. That is just horrendous. It's not acceptable. Again, he could not locate any of his pitches effectively. And so to me, this is more than just a nagging injury thing. It's partly mental, partly physical. It may be a lot of things, but whatever it is, I'm not going to sit there and hold out hope. Now, I'm not going to say he, like any of the players in those, are 100% absolutely must drop no matter what, because if you have an IL spot, an NA spot, in this case, he's been sent down to the minors, fine, stash him, hope for the best, but I'm going to say you don't have to. And the same goes, unfortunately, for young stud for the Pirates, Jared Jones. I did talk about this a lot last week, but let me just repeat it again. Jared Jones may not come back this year because even if he is physically ready to go, it doesn't mean that the Bucks are going to rush him back into the rotation. Sure, the Pirates aren't in last place, surprisingly, and they technically could contend for a wild card spot. If you believe in that, fine. But still, they're going to be careful with a guy like Jones. I mean, obviously on the IL. And again, we've heard from the GM Ben Cherington, it's going to be weeks, not days. And so even if he does come back and he's full go, how many more innings are going to let him go before they shut him down for the season? I have a feeling we're not going to get that much fantasy value out of him. Now, I will also say if there's somebody who's willing to buy an injured player who's going to be out for weeks, sure, you can sell him. I'm not that optimistic. I'm going to say, again, if you have room on your IL, you can stash him, but I am not holding out hope here. He's still owned in 3/4 of fantasy leagues, so most owners aren't dropping him. They're doing the stash thing. I wouldn't do that. And from young pitchers to veteran hitters, let's just say I'm definitely not optimistic on another Dodger. That's Max Muncy. He's been out a while already. We're hearing that he's not coming back till August at the soonest. He hasn't even begun swinging a bat yet. Now, Muncy, when he went down, this guy who's kind of an auto stash, again, he's owned in about 3/4 of fantasy leagues in Yahoo. But how much longer are we going to wait? And at this point, I'm going to say, what do you expect to get out of him down the stretch? Now, again, this is a player that you're only hoping for home run power because that's what he gives you, home runs, RBIs. This is not a player who will help you. In fact, he actively hurts you in batting average. He was hitting all of 223 this season before getting hurt, which is a big improvement over the last 2 years. Remember, just 2 years ago, he didn't even finish the season at the 200 mark. Sure, there are counting stats to be had in that Dodgers lineup, but again, this is a team that might not hold its breath and wait for Muncy to come back and hope he is in midseason form. They could make some moves to help address third base, as they already have made some small moves with Kevin Biggio, players like that. Maybe they'll go out and be more aggressive. I would rather save my IL spot for a younger player with upside, for a pitcher who could help me down the stretch, for somebody other than Max Muncy. And another veteran who I think it's just time to say goodbye to in fantasy is Justin Turner, former third baseman for the Dodgers. Now, Turner right now with Toronto Blue Jays, we'll see how much longer that lasts. This is a team that should really be a seller at the deadline. We'll see if they are. If they do, I mean, Turner should go because this is a player who really belongs as a utility player, bench bat, as opposed to an everyday starter. I mean, we've seen his numbers kind of nosedive across the board, only hitting 231 this season, 5 home runs, and he's been playing a lot. The most alarming numbers are not the ones you see in the box score or in your fantasy league stats. It's the fact that his hard hit rate is the lowest it's ever been at 33%. And of course, the barrel's way down. And the exit velocity, his average exit velocity is the worst of his career. Age catches up with us all. Obviously, for Turner, it has happened. And so we're not seeing that power anymore. He's trying to pull the ball, but it's just not as effective anymore. He's hitting line drives, but they're too soft. They're not falling for base hits. He's not helping with batting average either. I mean, this is a player who, again, like I said, a veteran presence on a contending team, a utility player, a pinch hitter, something like that. That's where he belongs, and that's possibly where he'll end up the rest of the season. Does not belong on fantasy rosters. And then no matter what Toronto does the rest of this season, it seems pretty clear that Jordan Romano's season might be over. I mean, there were some red flags raised early in the year. He was only out a short bit and then came back, and then again a short bit, and then now he's just been out for a while. The fact is that although we haven't heard the term UCL, we haven't heard anything that indicates it's a season-ending injury. This could be one of those unofficial season-ending things where they just shut him down because he's had so much repeated elbow soreness, and he really was not effective when he was out there, indicating that there's a major concern. And if this team falls out of contention, why would they force him out there? If you drafted Romano, you already know the pain. In the 15 games he did appear this season, a 6.59 ERA, 1.46 whip, and his strikeout rate, again, one of those red flags, was down a lot to 21%, just barely below league average. Well, I'll say, look, with certain young players like Jared Jones, I talked about before, like maybe even if they come back September, give you a couple weeks worth of value, it might be worth it. For Ramondo, it really isn't. I mean, if you still have him stashed, just cut ties right now. And then I just have to get this off my chest. Look, I get that there are some teams that throw in the towel halfway through the season, or maybe life gets in the way, or maybe you just joined the league and you didn't want to really stick with it, whatever, right? Some teams just become dead, right? In fantasy, you know what I'm talking about. There's that team that has half the starting lineup filled with injured players or whatnot. Okay, but you can't tell me that 43% of all teams on Yahoo leagues are actively dead just because they drafted Ronald Acuna. I have seen many teams that are still very much in it, very much active, and they're stashing Ronald Acuna on the IL. Let me just tell you right now, it is safe to drop Ronald Acuna. He's not coming back this year. You're basically just wasting a spot where you could stash anybody who might actually come back this season. And the same goes for Spencer Strider. 34% rostered still. Why is this happening? I understand sunk cost fallacy. Like that was my first round pick. I got it's gone. It's over. Give it up, right? Let it go. They're not coming back this season. You're wasting a spot. Do something with it, just at the very least, for my sanity. Gonna keep saying it. The best way to win in fantasy baseball is simply to stay active, keep making smart moves. That means dropping the right players and, of course, adding the right players. Check out the players you should be adding on the waiver wire if they're still available right here.